In the spring of 1870, a French illustrator named Paul Hadol drew a map of Europe. On the map, France is a soldier. Prussia is an obese giant in a spiked helmet kneeling on a sleeping man. Spain is a fat woman lying on her back, smoking a cigarette, slowly crushing Portugal. Russia is a homeless person. The map cost 20 centimes. It sold extremely well. 3 months later, Europe began to look almost exactly like the map. Anthropomorphic maps, maps where countries are drawn as people, were not new in 1870. They had been around since the 16th century, mostly as flattery. The Habsburgs got drawn as a queen, France got drawn as a flower, England got drawn as a horse, which England seems to have enjoyed. In the 19th century, the genre changed. Specifically, it got mean. The reason was technology. Cheap colour lithography arrived in the 1850s, mass literacy arrived in the 1860s, and political censorship in France arrived constantly. If you wanted to call the emperor a vulture, you couldn't write it down. You could, however, draw it. Paul Hadol drew it. In the years after 1870, he produced a series called La Ménagerie Impériale, the Imperial Menagerie, which depicted the entire fallen Bonaparte regime as a zoo. Napoleon III was the vulture. His cousin Prince Napoleon was a hare. Every minister got an animal. The series was extremely popular and extremely unforgiving, and was published only after Napoleon III had been safely captured by the Prussians and could no longer have anyone arrested. This is the artist. This is the man who, in the spring of 1870, sat down to draw a map of Europe. Start in the middle. Prussia is a giant. The giant has Bismarck's face, the heavy jowls, the moustache, the receding hair, wearing the Pickelhaube, the spiked Prussian helmet that by 1870 had become a kind of national logo. The giant is too big for his own borders. His right knee is planted on the chest of Austria, who is depicted as a sleeping soldier in his underwear. This is a reference to the Battle of Königgrätz in 1866, in which Prussia destroyed the Austrian army in 7 weeks and politely informed Vienna that Germany would now be run from Berlin. The giant's right arm is stretched westward, smothering the Netherlands. His mass spills toward Belgium. The implication is direct. Prussia is going to keep expanding, and the small countries between Prussia and France are not going to enjoy what comes next. In 1914, this turned out to be correct. Next to the giant, in the only kinetic posture on the entire map, France is depicted as a Zouave. The Zouaves were elite light infantry originally raised in French Algeria, famous across Europe for 2 things: legendary battlefield ferocity and absolutely ridiculous uniforms. Baggy red trousers, short embroidered jackets, fezzes. They looked like they had wandered onto the battlefield from a touring opera company, and they fought like demons. Hadol's France is bearded, lean and lunging. He has a rifle. He is aiming a bayonet at the Prussian giant's chest. 3 months later, the actual Zouaves would be sent to the actual Prussian army in their actual baggy red trousers, and would discover that the bayonet, as a piece of 19th century military technology, had been comprehensively superseded by the breech-loading rifle, the mitrailleuse, and the Krupp steel artillery piece. But on the map, the Zouave is winning. On the map, it's still possible. Now, look outward. Britain is an old woman with her back turned to the continent. Her cap is Scotland. On a leash, she holds Ireland, drawn as a snarling dog she is, the caption notes, trying to ignore. Behind her, the map's own printed caption supplies the diagnosis. England, isolated, seethes with rage, and almost forgets the Ireland she holds on a leash. This was a fair summary of British foreign policy, which in 1870 consisted in its entirety of facing the other way. In the first week of July 1870, the permanent head of the British Foreign Office advised his new Foreign Secretary that he had never, in his long experience, known so great a lull in foreign affairs. France declared war on Prussia 2 weeks later. Britain's one concrete contribution to the crisis came in August, when it asked both armies to promise, in writing, not to step on Belgium. Both sides signed. Both sides kept it. Italy is Garibaldi. Italy had spent most of the previous decade unifying itself, mostly through the efforts of Giuseppe Garibaldi, who in 1860 conquered the southern half of the country with approximately 1,000 men in red shirts. Hadol's Garibaldi is wary of France. French troops were occupying Rome at the time, protecting the Pope, which Italy considered impolite, but is using both hands to hold back Prussia's right boot. Off Italy's coast, Corsica and Sardinia are fused into a single, small, impish figure. The figure is mooning the viewer. The figure is specifically modelled on Gavroche, the street urchin from Victor Hugo's Les Misérables, which had been published 8 years earlier and had already entered French popular consciousness to the point where you could put a small, naked child on a map and everyone in France would know who it was. This is a map confident of its audience. Spain is a fat woman lying on her back, smoking. Portugal is the small soldier she is lying on top of. This is funny in 1870, and it becomes funnier in retrospect because the immediate diplomatic trigger for the entire Franco-Prussian War was a fight about who should be the next King of Spain. Hadol drew a Spain that was completely uninterested in its own succession crisis. He was, with respect to Spanish political engagement, correct. Denmark is a small, swaggering soldier standing on top of Prussia's arm. The territory between Denmark's legs is Schleswig-Holstein, which Prussia had taken from Denmark in 1864 and which Denmark wanted back. Denmark would not get it back until 1920. Sweden and Norway, which were a single kingdom in 1870, are a panther. Russia is a beggar. Specifically, a chiffonnier, a Parisian rag collector, the lowest form of urban scavenger, who pulled a sack through the streets at night picking up things other people had thrown away. Hadol's Russia is bearded and ragged, and his enormous patched coat is sewn together from territories. The most recently sewn-on patch is labelled Crimea, which is a reference to the Crimean War, in which Russia had been militarily humiliated by France and Britain 15 years earlier. Russia is bent forward. Russia is reaching with the sack. Russia, the map says, is waiting. The Ottoman Empire is in 2 pieces, because in 1870 it physically was. Turkey in Europe is yawning and being crushed. Turkey in Asia is a woman lying on her side, smoking a hookah. Both halves are visibly disengaged. Switzerland is a small wooden cabin. The cabin has no doors. The cabin has no windows. This is the only honest piece of cartography on the entire map. At the bottom of the map, where a normal map prints a scale showing kilometers or degrees of longitude, Hadol drew a rifle. The rifle has a fixed bayonet. The caption reads, "Degrees of longitude." The implication, in March 1870, was that the next set of European borders would be measured in rifle lengths. In July 1870, France declared war on Prussia. In September 1870, the French Emperor surrendered at Sedan. In January 1871, the German Empire was proclaimed in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. Hadol's map sold across Europe. It was reprinted in London, Berlin, and Boston. The Berlin edition retained the giant Bismarck without modification because Berlin liked it. In 1914, when the next war broke out, German propagandists reprinted the 1870 map alongside an updated 1914 version by the illustrator Walter Trier, sold to raise money for the Red Cross. The marketing argument was, "Germany won last time, look at the map. History is on our side." In 1918, Germany lost. The genre of the funny map of Europe did not survive the experience. Hadol drew his map approximately 4 months before the war it predicted. He got Prussia right. He got France right. He got Italy right, Spain right, Switzerland right, Russia right, and Britain right. He got the position of the rifle right. The thing about persuasive cartography is that it is not a record of what is. It is an argument about what is about to be. Hadol was not predicting the future. He was looking at the present very carefully and drawing what he saw, and what he saw was a continent that had already decided. 20 centimes. The war it foresaw killed approximately 180,000 people. The next one killed approximately 20 million. We will get to that one too.